What is up, guys? What is up? Saying hello. Welcome to the Transparency Idaho4. Tonight, Bryan Kohberger's college North Hampton email address. Who accessed it on December 20th, 2022? We are going to talk about it as well as breaking down a special part, which is Ann Taylor, with the help of her team, did something incredible at the closed hearing when she got to talk to Payne. And I'm going to show you guys how incredible it is. All right. This is the order on defendant's motion to suppress the AT&T, Google, Apple, all that stuff. So it's coming straight from the words and the beliefs of Hitler. Okay. If you turn to Section E, it says Apple subpoena and search warrant. And it reads, the FBI served a federal grand jury subpoena upon Apple on or about January 12, 2023. And it says the FBI subpoena is not in the record. Okay. Apple responded on January 27, 2023 by providing subscriber information for 2 Apple accounts associated with defendant. The first one, B. Kohberger at spartan.northampton.edu. Now, I had the pleasure of calling Northampton this past week, Thursday and Friday, and speaking with records, admissions, and double checking some things because I, for one, had a college email at one point, and my college email, like so many universities, they terminate when you either graduate or when you are not enrolled anymore. So I wanted to make sure that Northampton had those same, what would be in my mind, we're going to make sure this is all accurate, taking us all the way back, not what their policy, how things were, right now in 2025 or 4 or 3 or 2. We're students from 2016, 2018, and 2020. That's what we are. They were very helpful. And so as you can see here, it says B. Kohberger at spartan.northampton.edu. And it says, which Apple indicated was active. Okay. And then this Wi-Fi Army owns at yahoo.com, which Apple indicated was locked. See States Exhibit S4 to Apple objection. Now, both accounts were created on October 7, 2016. The subscriber information provided by Apple also revealed the active account, which is right here. That's the active one. Had last been accessed on December 20th, 2022, just days before the defendant's arrest. The information produced by Apple in response to the FBI's subpoena is contained on a thumb drive submitted by the state as Exhibit S4 to the Apple objection. The FBI's preservation request also listed other email accounts it determined might be associated with defendant, but Apple's response to the request indicated it had no records associated with those accounts. Now, this is important because this date would be legit. This date is the day Moscow Police Department found out the name Bryan Kohberger, according to an under oath Payne's testimony, which was December 19th in the evening. The FBI told them in the evening on the 19th, and then there was a secondary meeting on December 20th, again in the evening, the FBI then broke down this family tree for Payne, which I'm going to get into. So I said to myself, well, how in the world could Bryan possibly get into this email in 2022? How could he do that? He has not gone to Northampton in years. Okay. After he went to Northampton, he then went to DeSales. Okay. So he goes to high school, then goes to Northampton, then goes to DeSales. So when I called Northampton and asked them about I told them that I had the at spartan.northampton.edu. That was mine, because I wasn't sure if they still, use like how they were doing things now. But I'm trying to access to get emails from back in the day. How do I do this? I'm trying to access this and get into it. Oh, honey. Oh gosh, no way. That ended when you maybe would have had like a little bit of a grace period just right after. Did you graduate or did you unenroll or, but yeah, those don't stay with you. And we don't even have, this isn't even how we do it anymore. We don't have this at Spartan anymore. I said, oh, really? I said, wow, the times have changed, huh? Just making my talk like I do. Again, in the order, it's very simple, right here. For the two Apple accounts associated with defendant Kohberger, which Apple indicated was active. Apple indicated that this one was active. Okay? Just read it right here. It's just, boop, says it. It's in the order. Okay? And this Wi-Fi Army owns, which Apple indicated was locked. Okay? Okay, coach? Now, I'm going to tell you what happened here. Is that, look at the date that the FBI supposedly did this and did it through a federal grand jury subpoena. January 12th, and then got this back January 27th. Well, something had to have happened before that. That this email address could have possibly been accessed on December 20th, 2022, which is the school email address. Bryan would not have had access to that per my conversations with Northampton. So you could say Northampton doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about. But the thing here is that this would have had nothing to do with this subpoena here in January. Somebody had accessed this, and it's like it happened before it. It happened earlier almost. Anyways, you think whatever you want about it, but call them up, ask them. There is no way that you were accessing in 2022 an email from and that you used during 2016, 2017, and 2018. They said, oh my God, you're going to be actually not even be in this system. Like we would have to go to the old stuff, which we don't even have anymore. Go ask them. Again. So curious on who accessed that email. And that it was accessed December 20th. Now, why is this important? Well, let's go to this. Payne. Okay. This is during the questioning of the closed hearing. Ann Taylor and her team knew exactly what to ask Payne. Now think about the IGG right now, and that they want it to be what? Neither side. Oh yeah, we don't want it. Oh, we don't want it. Wait, but oh, hey, state over here, can we have a generic lifeline that we can? That we could tell the jury on how our investigation progressed. Okay, as we all know, Payne and everybody has testified. This was a authored affidavit. It was, everybody was on site. Everybody was working together. It was So everybody, there was 2 meetings a day at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day. They're all co-located and information is being shared. Okay. And so everybody knows everything, right? So this is going to come down to, I told you guys that this was a brilliant move, but let's take a look. So, all right. So once you have Mr. Kohberger identified, what's your understanding of what that meant to have his name? Payne says, just in relation to the overall investigation is that, yes. So the only thing that was given to us was Bryan Kohberger's name. That was it. It was conveyed to us by the FBI that it was to be taken as no more than a tip. That was it. So once we received his name, we set out about doing basically, an independent verification of whether or not he was involved in this crime. December 19th, the name. December 20th, accessed. Next. I'm going to talk to you about that a little bit more, but do you know why the FBI connected Bryan Kohberger to this case? So December 20th, if memory serves, we had a secondary meeting with the FBI via Teams. It's like, online. If memory serves, and they simply walked us through the family tree, how they did that. Now, I don't remember the details of all of that. It was an in-depth conversation, to be honest. It was above my head. But they essentially worked their way through, the family tree and arrived at a conclusion that Bryan Kohberger was a person we should look into as a tip. That's the extent of my knowledge of how they did that. Okay. How was Bryan Kohberger, the name you received as a tip, linked to the case? Because Ann Taylor is getting him on the record to say certain things. He wasn't until after December 19th. What item of evidence did they link Bryan Kohberger to? This is so fucking sick. Yeah, you guys, what item of evidence did they link Bryan Kohberger to? Remember what I told you guys? I think the sheath is out. If they're not allowed to talk about IGG, the sheath is going bye-bye. Okay? Ready? I'm not sure what you're asking. As far as before December 19th, is that what you're referring to? Yeah. We didn't have one at that point. Again, the question, what item of evidence did they link Bryan Kohberger to? I'm not sure what you're asking. We didn't have one at that point. Why did you become interested in learning the identity of Bryan Kohberger? This is under the penalties of perjury. Okay. Ready? This is so good. Why did you become interested in learning the identity of Bryan Kohberger? Not quite sure I understand your question. We were interested in anyone who would have been involved in this. The DNA from the knife sheath was obviously the one thing we had that we thought was a very strong piece of evidence in this case. So it was that particular piece that we pursued as a potential avenue of identifying a suspect. Damn. We're all like, Anne, what the fuck? Why is she asking? What is she doing? Is it your understanding that the FBI's work said that it was Bryan Kohberger's DNA on the sheath? That is not my understanding. What is your understanding? My understanding is that the FBI concluded that Bryan Kohberger was a possible source of DNA that we should look into. They did not, to my knowledge, at any point say Bryan Kohberger's DNA is on the knife sheath. That was never conveyed to me. On December 20th, when that happened, when he's somebody you should look into. What did you do? Well, we had already started looking into him from the previous evening. So that day, December 20th, we began going through basically our sort of standard investigative procedures that we had been doing throughout the investigation for various leads. To include looking through the DMV searches, NCIC, outline, we have databases called this, So we started doing all those things, looking for information on Mr. Kohberger. And what did you find? I'm sorry. And what you found is that he didn't have a criminal history. Is that right? Correct. Talk to me about going to Pennsylvania for the trash pull. Well, I was not in Pennsylvania for that trash pull. I'll ask somebody else that later. All right. So then we go here. Now. Okay. All right. Okay. I want to back up and talk about these affidavits. All right. I want to back up and talk about these affidavits. I think you told me in a prior hearing that you were the person that wrote Exhibit A, or the affidavit in support of the search warrants, when it came to looking for things about Bryan Kohberger. Did I understand that right? Yes, ma'am. As far as when I started writing the affidavit, is that what you're referring to? Yeah, the first search warrant that applied to Mr. Kohberger. I believe it was December 23rd. Yes. When did you begin writing that affidavit? I began writing that affidavit long before that. It had been a running affidavit because at the beginning of it, there's this walkthrough of like the crime scene. There's numerous things. It was a living document. So we just add information to it. I'd say that document started, I don't know, couldn't quite give an exact date, a couple weeks prior to that, even before we knew Mr. Kohberger's name. Help me understand what parts were added after you knew Mr. Kohberger's name. Well, to walk down the line best I can. So obviously there's the initial component, which is the crime scene, the testimony from the roommates, he means interviews. Then after that, it shifts to, I believe, mention of, or the first component was that Bryan Kohberger was pulled over by Corporal Duke. Okay, so think about this. What is she doing right now? She is seeing how ridiculous you're going to be explaining this to the jury, your investigation. So now what we know, everything that we know now, and after you read all these motion limines, and when you go back and you actually read these 40 pages of how Ann Taylor specifically asked these questions so that the lead investigator is on the stand saying this under oath, you cannot go back on this. Like, so this whole thing of this generic tip, and we're going to have somebody testify that we got a blah, 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 blah. Who? You wiped out the FBI, you wipe out ISP, because everybody was co-located, and every single day, twice a day, everybody got in this room that wasn't out in the, like, either doing an interview or something, but and then if they weren't there physically, they were there on like a Zoom. Okay. All right, hold on one second. I'm going to have some fun here. Let me just go ahead and do this. So again, how did you get to Mr. Kohberger? Well, let's see. Okay, so the first component was that Bryan Kohberger was pulled over by Corporal Duke on a traffic stop. He was also contacted by WSU police. He was also contacted by WSU police. Now, is this a typo or is this a error? He was also contacted by then he says his vehicle was ran by WSU PD officers. Then after that, we included trying to walk down through the thing without it in front of me. He's talking about like the probable cause affidavit. Then we included the vehicle information that was about the white Elantra. And after that, we included his residence and that he had hit LPRs or his vehicle had been seen on LPRs between Moscow or Pullman, and Pennsylvania. And then there was the component about where he lived in Pennsylvania. Let's go back to that time before you started adding the traffic stop. That affidavit contains some information that you gained from other officers. Is that right? Yes. Okay. And you didn't write large parts of the affidavit. Is that also right? I took a lot of language from experts and other officers and agents. That's correct. Are you aware your affidavit, your living document, was claimed by other people as their own original document? Remember, not giving you credit, but claimed as their own. Are you aware of that? Yes, I am. Perfect. Are you aware that you probably know because Nicholas Balance was co-located with you? Did the two of you continually work on language to satisfy what the prosecutor wanted to see for probable cause? Yes, ma'am. Well, that's a problem, right? Because it was the prosecutor what was she writing up? So you guys now remember and know what Cyratus put out, right? Who was writing up that affidavit? Who was writing up to get the search warrant for the AT&T? Now, did you and Nicholas Balance produce a map to show a possible route of travel for your suspect? Yes, ma'am. And Your Honor, I'm going to show him this map. Okay. Okay. Is that the map you and Nicholas Balance came up with to help with probable cause? Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Ready? Wait, where is that at? Oh, right here. Is that the map you and Nicholas Balance came up with to help with probable cause? Yes, ma'am. Okay, thank you. I'm going to leave that there for just a minute. I'm going to ask you some other questions. I want to back up to the part of the first affidavit. This is asking for AT&T records. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. And this AT&T record, is that the first set, the 48 hours of AT&T records? Yes, ma'am, I believe so. Is that right? Hold on 1 second. Take that clear off. Okay. And are these AT&T records related to a phone of Mr. Kohberger that he had? Yes, ma'am. All right. And so in doing this affidavit, you have this working document, and I'm going to start with DM. If I say DM, do you know who I'm talking about? Yes. And then this is where the court, and she's one of the roommates. And how many times was interviewed by law enforcement at the time you wrote the December 23rd report? If memory serves me, it was 4, I think 3 or 4. In the affidavit, you wrote a statement. That she had heard Kaylee go upstairs, yell, "Someone's here," and run back downstairs. Is that correct? Yes, ma'am. And you used the words "she thought she heard." Do you remember that? Now, this is where Jennings is like, yeah. No. So then, all right. Well, let's rephrase. Let me start from a different place. Let's go back to the part of your affidavit for December 23rd, AT&T 1, the part where you put in things particular to Bryan Kohberger. You put in that affidavit a traffic stop, I believe, from August in Moscow, Idaho. Is that correct? Yes, ma'am. That traffic stop, was that on your radar? Now, this is where she just nuts it. Ready? So here we go. Ready? So 5 minutes ago, maybe 7 at the most, I said, Ann Taylor's eliminating what they can possibly say is how they got to Bryan Kohberger. Are you ready for this? She just did a couple of it 7 minutes ago. Okay. That traffic stop, was that on your radar before December 19th when you learned of Bryan Kohberger's name? No, ma'am. The next thing you relied on was a traffic stop at WSU. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. Was that traffic stop on your radar before you knew of Bryan Kohberger's name on December 19th? No, ma'am. You put in information about front license plates being missing from Pennsylvania cars. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. The 1112 video did not show enough of the vehicle that you could see whether it had a front license plate. Is that right? That sounds correct, yes. So it was after you learned of Bryan Kohberger's name that became part of your affidavit. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. Dude, she's nutting it. Let's talk about the vehicle identification for a minute before I run back down to the rest of that affidavit after Bryan was identified. When you worked with Special Agent Immel to identify a vehicle, was there more than one vehicle he identified? I don't believe that there was. If memory serves, it was just the Honda Elantra. Wrong. I know your memory is not serving you correct there. Would you agree that he was most comfortable with the years 2011 to 2013? Jennings, objection, Your Honor, for the same reasons before. The scope. Taylor says, they looked for a 2011, 2013. It was their BOLO. It was after Bryan was identified by IGG that they expanded the search. That related to what? Look at it. It's going to relate to Frank's, but it has to do with IGG and when they identified him. I have about 2 more questions along this line. You have this up. So then I'm not going to go back and forth on the sidebar because, all right, so. All right. All the things in the warrant that became particular to Bryan Kohberger. Right there. Were not on your radar before you learned his identity through IGG. Is that correct? Yes, ma'am. Boom. How are you going to say you got to Bryan Kohberger? And you elected, now this is where it just blows for Ashley Jennings. And, ready? And you elected not to put the IGG identification in your probable cause affidavit. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. Now let's find out why. Now this is just nutting it. Now here is just give props to Ann Taylor and the experts that she worked with to put this line of questioning together. What led to that decision? Here it is. Oh my God, Lana says, oh my God. That decision was a collaborative decision. We made that decision in an effort to independently verify that the information that was provided to us as a quote unquote tip from the FBI, in much the same way we would any other tip in law enforcement, So it was not in any way meant to obfuscate or any sort of information. It was simply, can we validate Mr. Kohberger's involvement in this incident, or can we not? That was it. Can we validate? And now we have Ashley Jennings validating it with false AT&T results. But it gets better. Okay. So as a group effort, you decided to, everybody's involved. So as a group effort, you decided to intentionally leave that out of your affidavit. Yes, ma'am. Then here's Jennings. She doesn't know how to count, but I only have one question for you. Let's go back to December 19th, December 20th, and the information that was provided to the team, correct? It was a team. Yes, ma'am. And who all was part of this team that was receiving this information over the telephone from the FBI? Why would you be receiving information over the telephone if you're co-located? So there were several of us. Yourself, Mr. Thompson was there. Darren Gilbertson from the Idaho State Police, Ed Jacobson from the FBI. I believe there was a couple other folks from the FBI and ISP in the room. I don't remember exactly who they were. And then myself, there was numerous people that were involved. All right, just wiping it all out. You know, again, how did you get to Bryan Kohberger? Your Honor, we're not using IGG, says the state. And Taylor says, we're not using IGG. We want it out too. And no, you're not going to be using any generic tip. You're going to use your probable cause affidavit because that's all you have. Would it have been essentially the team leaders for the investigation? Yeah. Was this any different than the other information sharing that occurred during this case? Not at all. Oh, shit, Jennings. Just walking yourself. How many more questions has she asked? I just have one question for you. Not at all. There were routine team discussions. Yes, ma'am. We had 2 official briefings every day of the investigation, morning and evening. So twice a day, we would all link up. And that was not just the command team. That was everyone who was not actively on an interview. They would come back to the police department, sit in the same room, okay? And they were so worried about these affidavits and everybody had to know everything. So this is how they clip them. So discuss the information that was learned from the day. So it was very common throughout this investigation for us to all be in the same room and, discuss the same information. So you were not the only investigator receiving information from various sources. Absolutely not. So when we talk about this Exhibit A, that wasn't necessarily just your Exhibit A. No, ma'am, it was not. It was yours, Ashley. It was all the information that the investigators had up to that point. Yes, ma'am, that is an accurate statement. Now, related to the IGG and the information you were provided by the FBI, in the information provided, did you receive any medical information about Bryan Kohberger? No, ma'am, we did not. I don't have anything further, thank you. Redirect, Your Honor? Yes, thank you. Ms. Jennings was just talking to you about the team, I guess, that got together a couple times a day from November 13th until December 19th or the 20th is our target time right now? Yes, ma'am. Who from the FBI was part of those meetings. Like I said, Jacobson, he was there. Maria. I believe Special Agent Rob Hill was involved. I'm trying to think of other names. I don't remember any. There were others there. I just don't remember who they were. I apologize. Where's Nick Balance? That's okay. How about who else from the Moscow Police Department was there? So Captain Blaker was there. I believe, usually Detective Vargas was there. Sometimes Chief Fry would sit in on those meetings. Most nights Chief Fry would sit in on those meetings. Captain Dollinger, Anthony Dollinger was in those meetings from MPD. He was the one that was putting out the press releases every day. I'm trying to think of all the others. Basically, the whole command team from Moscow Police Department itself would be in those meetings. And then whoever else was available from the investigation section would also, be there. Who from ISP was there? Darren Gilbertson was there. I believe Detective Joe Lake was there most days. I can't remember who else was consistently there. I remember those two for sure. Lieutenant Mike Mooney was those meetings. That was the three off the top of my head. When was the first time you talked about the identification of Bryan Kohberger in those meetings? As far as when we knew of him? Yeah. December 19th. Boom. Oh, boom. Oh, shit. Okay. How many hours of meetings do you think you had up until that identification of Bryan Kohberger? Goodness, many. I don't know. It was a lot. Twice a day, every day? Yes, ma'am. 7 days a week, if not more than that. Yeah. Thank you. That's it. Now. Okay. Okay. By the time that it was December 19th and you first heard of Bryan Kohberger's name and you reviewed videotapes, yes, ma'am. How many hours of videotapes do you think that you reviewed? I don't remember a lot. I can't give you an accurate representation. In those videotapes, did you focus in on any particular ones that were of interest to you? Yes, ma'am. In particular would be are you talking about addresses that were, how would you like me to refer to them? That's what I want to know. How do you want me to refer to these? And she says, how you nicknamed the cameras. God, Ann. So the first one was the 1112 King Road. It was a surveillance camera, an exterior surveillance camera on a house that was immediately to the northeast of 1122 King Road. There were some, look at this, unbelievable. There was some footage from a Linda Lane camera. There was some footage from Linda Lane camera. Is that because you took out the 36 minutes? What do you mean there were some? I forget the address off the top of my head for Linda Lane. There was footage from the A and W, which is at the corner of Lauder and South Main. And there was the footage from an address on Indian Hills. An address. Well, there's 3, allegedly now. There was also footage from a Ridge Road camera. And that's how we referred to them, was basically by those names. With those references in mind, here's boom, boom. With those references in mind and keeping December 19th in mind, which of those cameras were your focus before you learned of Bryan Kohberger's name? I would say all of them were of importance before that. And it wasn't later that other cameras became important. Is that right? The WSU ones. And anything else. Like he just told you which ones. Those were the main ones we relied upon for vehicles in particular, is what those ones were. I'm going to return to that in just a minute, but I want to talk to you about interviews. And so Ann Taylor just roped in all the ways. How are you going to say that you got to Bryan Kohberger? Oh, wait, hold on. Okay, here we go. Again, all the things in the warrant that became particular to Bryan Kohberger were not on your radar before you learned his identity through IGG. Is that correct? Do you see this? The answer, yes, ma'am. Question again. All the things in the warrant that became particular to Bryan Kohberger were not on your radar before you learned his identity through IGG. Is that correct? Yes, ma'am. Now, how is the state going to introduce Bryan Kohberger in their case in chief? Next. And you elected not to put the IGG identification in your probable cause affidavit. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. What led to that decision? Well, that decision was a collaborative decision. We made that decision in an effort to independently verify the information that was provided to us as a tip from the FBI. Do you want me to read that one more time? That decision was a collaborative decision. We made that decision in an effort to independently verify the information that was provided to us as a tip from the FBI in much the same way we would any other tip in law enforcement. So it was not in any way meant to obfuscate any sort of information. It was simply, can we validate Mr. Kohberger's involvement in this incident, or can we not? So if you can't have the FBI IGG and that doesn't exist, she just laid it all out. Well, Mr. Detective Payne, in a previous hearing, did you not tell the court that you did not, that is not how you in fact got to Mr. Kohberger? How is this going to go? Because that's what the thing is you're not going to lie to the jury on how you got to Bryan Kohberger. And that's what the defense is saying. And there is nothing to him. And she pins it she basically octagons it all the way around and ties all the tentacles of you got the FBI, you got the ISP, you got the Moscow Police Department. And then when he says that we want to independently verify, we wanted to go do it a different way. Do you understand that what came after that was the AT&T warrant, where we're going to map out this white Elantra, the phone, and they left out Ashley Jennings checking it off, leaving out the 7 minutes, right? Who made that call? Because how you try to independently verify it is where Ashley Jennings has herself in the hottest water I've ever seen a prosecutor in. This was a hearing, okay, for this was a Frank's hearing for the IGG. I mean, here Payne is basically saying and telling Hippler that we did not get to Bryan Kohberger any other way than the IGG. That's how we got to him. And then after that, we did whatever. So then how Hippler comes back in an order and says and acts like WSU identification is in part how that happened. I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. Okay. Thank God he's not the jury. I mean, that's just, it's in black and white. But so I'm just curious how are they going to tie, you know, he puts himself in on this with the sheath. So as a group effort, you decided intentionally leave that out of your affidavit. Yes, ma'am. Detective, I'm going to attempt to put this map up there. Is that the map you and Nicholas Balance came up with to help with probable cause? He says yes. That was him and Nick Balance. I think Nick Balance is going to say something else. I don't think Nick Balance is going to be testifying to this. Why do we think that Nick Balance does not have his report all the way in? His opinions? So take a look. Where is it? Cyray's, I have reviewed Nick Balance's, here we go. I am addressing, so I have reviewed all of the state's responses in reference to this motion. I am addressing the matters of FBI Special Agent Nicholas Balance's anticipated testimony in this affidavit and what has not been disclosed. I have reviewed the initial reports, final reports, everything. Despite this progression of disclosure, Special Agent Balance's opinions on the relevant issues at hand still have not been disclosed. Is that right? Look at that. I have reviewed disclosures in reference to Special Agent Balance's interpretations and opinions relating to AT&T call detail records. They are vague and at times contradictory. At this time, I am unable to identify his methodologies and or resulting opinions on most of his work, preventing me from any real analysis to determine the basis of his opinions. The disclosures in reference to the facts and data relied on by Special Agent Balances to form his opinions regarding AT&T cell detail records are conflicting and void of substance. His work does not contain his methodology other than a paragraph. He does not mention AT&T handoff data, drive test mapping, or any other critical methodology required in this analysis. The report does not provide explanation why Special Agent Balance may or may not rely on AT&T data preventing me from any real analysis of his opinion. I regularly work as a subject matter expert, and it is standard in my field for experts and their opinions to be well documented and based on accepted best practices or methodology. The facts and data relied upon to reach an opinion are known and disclosed. That's what you do. Special Agent Balance's work is a departure from the field standard. He has not disclosed his methodology and analysis for his opinions. This is partially due to contradicting methodologies that have been disclosed to date, saying something at one point, now something at a different point. This is partially due to vague work product, absence of any real substance as to facts and data. This is particularly due to changes that evolved through his work product without explanation and documented by facts and data as a basis. I did note that Special Agent Balance has a dual role in this case. He is an expert witness for the state, and using these same skill sets, he was involved in the actual investigation from the onset. He was co-located with investigators throughout the investigation. His opinions and interpretations were relied on by investigators and prosecutors. Ashley Jennings. These interpretations and opinions found their way into every probable cause statement supporting search warrants against the defendant. He is referenced in nearly every search warrant issued. His opinions and interpretations were an integral piece of building probable cause against the defendant. Unfortunately, most of his opinions and interpretations provided to investigators and prosecutors are not supported by the evidence in this case. It is the very reason I was awaiting Special Agent Balance's report detailing the facts, the data, methodology, his analysis relied on to make such egregious errors. Cyree wanted to know, how the fuck did you come to this conclusion? I know your work. I know what you do. This is not what you do. What the fuck? It's like Agent Balance is missing in action. Ashley Jennings can't seem to get a disclosure filed. The omitted work in this case is exculpatory to Mr. Kohberger. The intentional omission of exculpatory evidence. Special Agent Balance did not include analysis of AT&T handoff data provided by AT&T for the defendant's mobile device on November 13th, 2022, between the hours of 2:30 a.m. and 3 a.m. How is that possible? The handoff data in the defendant's AT&T records during this time is exculpatory to the defendant. Special Agent Balance did not include an analysis of AT&T data regarding 23 time periods in his report that he appears to be suggesting the defendant was at or very near to the crime scene. This opinion appears to be based off cell tower connections, primarily handoff connections in the defendant's AT&T records. It is difficult to determine the process or methodology Special Agent Balance relied on to suggest this connection for several reasons, because the AT&T records do not support the statement. There is no report or analysis detailing the defendant's movements between June 2022 and December of 2022. There is no report or analysis detailing the defendant's movements. So what is mainstream media? What are these people talking about? Why are they pumping this shit out? Which would be needed to even surmise that the defendant's phone was at or near the crime scene 23 times prior to the homicides. It's not even in the fucking report. So who was reporting this shit? Oh. Moscow Police Department, who then told the families, who then the families told certain people, and they're out there spreading that. That's how. This is an affidavit under the penalties of perjury his whole entire career. You think he's going to fill fucking something like this out? This man doesn't need this case. He doesn't do work for the defense ever. So here you go, peeps. All you guys, oh, he did it 23 times. 23 times my motherfucking ass. There is no mapping showing the network connections relied upon. There are no drive test coverage maps of the other than one cell site. A recent disclosure about what Special Agent Balance may testify to reads, handoffs are mapped on a case-by-case basis, which is determined by the needs of the investigation, end quote. I can't even believe, from my experience as a subject matter expert in this field, this claim is outside of any established best practice or reliability methodology of analysis. The standard is that all data must be analyzed and considered regardless of how it impacts the investigation, meaning you didn't map it and you're refusing to map it because you know that it royally fucks your case. So, but then you lied because since you didn't rely on the IgG and you relied on the stuff that you made up in the probable cause, now you have nothing. It's all lies. They knew it was lies. What's up, Mandy? What's up, Mandy? We'll ring the bell on that, Cy-Ray. It gets worse. Official way to become a member there. That girl. Ooh, that girl. This stuff was supposed to already be done because they did it so long ago and they relied upon this for the probable cause because they did not go the IgG route. Hey, we're going to go and verify and vet all this shit, okay? So here, I have reviewed the disclosures about what Special Agent Balance will testify to and did not find the disclosures provide further analysis to support his opinion. In quotes, the first cell site recorded in this session is the only cell site that is chosen based on measurements made by the cell phone, representing the best signal from these measurements and ranking of surrounding cell sites. So this is what he says. This is what Balance said. What are these sirens going on around us? Are these like tests?
Yeah.
Yeah, testing? Okay, testing. Okay, so this is what Nick Balance said at one point, and Cy-Ray says, this theory can be disproved with the AT&T records themselves. This response does not explain why he would use handoff data at certain times while ignoring it at other times. Then the next thing he says is the coverage maps are created using the actual measurements taken by the GAR and interpretation or interpolat. Oh wait, what can I see? What can I see this? Interpolation. Sorry, I couldn't see it on my screen. I'm looking for my screen. You guys hear those sounds? You guys, there's no weather issues here. It's the end of the world over here. No, there's not. I think they were testing some stuff, but I don't know. Oh gosh. Oh, maybe it's bad weather now. We're all going. It's time to go, guys. Sirens. We're all going, guys. What's wrong with bushy eyebrows? Oh God. Sirens. That was funny. The natural neighbor algorithm was this statement falls well short of maybe there is weather finally kicking in. Is it coming? Oh, we're about to get a storm, I think. That's great. Anyways, you guys, when you go back and you read just the 30-some pages of the dialect, it's clear what Ann Taylor was doing. I mean, this case is fallen apart, and I don't know why they wouldn't have just used IGG. IGG is used in cases. You can use it. Sad. Columbus is under tornado watch. Jeez. Let me hit this one other. Yo, what up, guys? I'll say bye to everybody. So thank you. But our power is going in and out. So I guess those sirens. It's not really that bad though. I don't know. Come on, a little rain don't hurt nobody. Come on, man. Come on, bros. All right, guys. Peace out. Good night, guys. Thank you so much.